Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to our waning coverage of the 2024 MUFON International Symposium here in Irving, Texas. We have the pleasure of being joined right now by Joann Donaldson. She is a actual scientist and former Apollo scientist. I am so happy to be able to have you on.
You're welcome.
Number one, thank you for literally everything. Like everything, Joann. Most people do not realize that without space travel, without the Apollo program, without even the whole space race, we would not have had the miniaturization of technology that we have. We wouldn't have smartwatches. We wouldn't have cell phones the way we have them. All of this stuff comes from the equation of how do we get 1,000 pounds of payload into space?
Yep.
How do we get what we need communication-wise up there at a decent cost without having an additional 5,000 pounds of fuel to get it up there? What got you into the world of that kind of science to begin with, Joann?
Well, in 1969, I had done 8 years in the Air Force. And in 1971, I finished up my engineering degree in May 71. And so I was looking for an engineering job. So I see this little ad in one of the government magazines looking for engineers for NASA. And I went, well, okay, I'll apply for this. And so I did. Got called. Asked a lot of questions. Got called again. Or face-to-face interview. Finally, I got a call that says, how would you like to go and work at Johnson Space Center? And I went, and I says, well, okay, that sounds great. So, show up, and day one, my boss, Joseph Baker, looks at me and goes, I got two things to tell you. Number one, you are now officially going to be on the pre-flight and recovery team for Apollo and for future missions. And I'm going, okay. And second of all, due to the fact of what we are doing, we are going to be the people that are going to have to teach the astronauts how to do this. So you're going to end up having to work with the Apollo crews and everything on a daily basis. And it was kind of like, okay. It's like, I wasn't expecting this at all.
Yeah.
It was like going from a college student to your dream job, just boom.
Wow. Wow.
And it was very, very interesting, very, very satisfying. I got to do super cutting-edge engineering. It was just an absolute fabulous time. And even to the point that I made so many astronaut friends, I ended up getting invited to pool parties and barbecues and and all this stuff, and getting to meet the wives and the kids and all this stuff, and even today, every once in a while, I'll run into Buzz Aldrin or some of the remaining astronauts from that era, and they might not remember me at first, but once we get talking, then all of a sudden it clicks, and they go, "Oh my God, you were on our pre-flight and recovery team." And I said, "Yep." And so it was a very, very satisfying job, and I spent 18 years there before I went somewhere else, because I left it in between STS 85 and 86.
Okay.
Well, by that time, to me, the magic has really gone away. Okay? space flight was becoming basically what NASA really wanted it to be, and that was be almost like airlines.
Yeah, a commonplace situation.
Yeah, you know, we were not doing. By this time we had figured out most of everything we need to know about surviving in space. Okay, you know, there's none of this. You know, because half of the experiments we do were failures.
Sure.
Yeah, but those failures taught us, okay, not to do this on the next experiment. And after a while, we then started getting successes.
Yeah.
You know, so
Well,
it was a very interesting time. And
Yeah.
I look back on it now, and it's like, you know, wow, you know, that was a very, very, that was probably the best job I've had in my whole career.
Incredible. And you know, once again, when you start looking at the Apollo program, and I'm sorry, folks, this will be the second time this episode that I will look directly at the camera and tell you we went to the moon.
Yes, we did.
We went to the moon. I'm sorry. There are websites where you can go and see the lunar tracks, all that kind of stuff. It's pretty hard to observe something so small from this kind of distance, even from earthbound telescopes, that kind of stuff. But there are orbiter pictures out there that show the landing site.
Well, there's a couple orbiters, not ours.
Yeah.
I think one belongs to India.
Mm-hmm.
There's another orbiter that belongs to Japan that have cameras powerful enough that they can actually see the tracks.
Yeah, you can
from
see the
orbit.
lander. You can see
the lander.
Yeah.
You can see the tracks.
Exactly.
And it's not our gear. It's Indian gear and it's Japanese gear. So you know, don't take our word for it.
Take their word for it.
And
that's just it. It would have been good. This would have been an overarching conspiracy and something beyond the scale of the Manhattan Project.
Yeah.
You know, like, granted, my grandmother was a riveter. She was a Rosie riveter. She helped build things in Alabama, stuff like that. But it's one of those, like, they had compartmentalized programs, things like that. Apollo was not a compartmentalized program. It wasn't compartmentalized like that. There were so many.
Yes and no. Yes and no.
Continue.
The reason I say that is that you had engineers that worked on the Saturn V F1 engines. You had engineers that worked on the LEM.
Sure.
You had others that worked on the command service module. You had us, like myself, who were looking at how is space flight going to affect our bodies, and you know, how do we make sure that we maintain a healthy body while we're in space?
Yeah.
And so, in a sense, it was compartmentalized because, you know, you had this section of NASA looking at this, and this section of NASA looking at that, and and a lot of times they didn't interact with each other.
Sure.
But they all were working towards the same common goal. Just like the Manhattan Project.
Yeah.
They had engineers working on, you know, how to make the bomb explode. They had engineers how to make, what kind of casing do they need to do, you know, and all that stuff. And so I kind of look at the space program, basically the Apollo program, being kind of like a modern Manhattan program.
Sure. And I mean, granted,
except it was done not in secret.
Yes, I was going to say, it wasn't the fact of the people building things at a GE plant in Alabama. They knew what they were building.
Right.
It's not like the timers for the atomic bomb where they had no idea what this part was. They're just making 200 of them a day. Yep. No idea, totally compartmentalized. Like, yeah, and it's interesting.
Well,
because
everything with the Manhattan Project, there was so much secrecy.
Yeah.
That they had to maintain because they couldn't afford for Japan or Germany to find out what they were doing.
Exactly.
Whereas with the Apollo program, we opened it up to the whole world.
Interesting.
You know.
Interesting. And I don't know if a lot of people are familiar with that, Joann. Let's explore that for a minute, because the idea that it wasn't just American scientists working on these issues. And yes, we did lean on the work of Werner von Braun. We did add Operation Paperclip, all that kind of good stuff.
Guys.
Don't get me wrong. But when it came to the Apollo program, like, this was all new science. We, other than, a few satellites that had gone into orbit, things like that, we did not have the materials science for people to be hanging out outside of a capsule in space. We didn't have spacesuits the way that we had them when we went to the moon. All of this was new science, every bit of it.
Yeah, and a lot of it, I'll tell people, they'll ask me, how did you do this stuff? I says, well, basically by, by just trying something, or just trying something.
Yeah.
We would try to do an experiment to see if we could, get data to make sure that, like I said, part of it was to try to make sure the crews stay alive.
Yeah.
To all of this.
Yeah.
And we didn't know what the effects or weightlessness was going to have on the body, and all of this stuff. So we tried to do things that would simulate things like that. And sometimes these experiments didn't go the way we wanted them to go, because we're in the dark. We don't have anything to work off of.
Yeah, you haven't been there. You have no data set for what hanging out in outer space is like.
Right. It's like we've realized, we finally figured out that, okay, we can simulate weightlessness by doing what's called a bed rest study. Okay? And that is take a human person and put them flat on their back, or on their back or on their stomach or on the side, but not let them sit up or anything. And if we could do that over a period of time, we could get, at the time, theorize about hopefully what we saw with the bed rest study, we would see the same thing in weightlessness.
Sure.
Okay, and then we would have a base point. Well, unfortunately, it turned out that bed rest studies were a very stressful experiment.
In what way?
Well, the first one we tried was the 30-day bed rest study. Well, having a college student, so we would go out to University of Houston, Rice, and what's the other one? Baylor. Looking for college students that would like to participate in a bed rest study for 30 days, and we would give them a big, huge sum of money to do this.
Sure.
Well, what we didn't realize, the human body has a hard time adapting to laying flat for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 30 days.
Yeah, your circulatory system is not made for that.
Yeah. Neither is your
muscular system.
Well, not only is your muscular system, but also your neurological system.
Yeah.
One of the things we discovered was these people were starting to get extremely bad backaches. Okay? And which is ironic, because once the crews started getting in space, they didn't exhibit any backaches. This was a artifact of gravity.
Yeah.
Not weightlessness.
Yeah, of the sag of the middle of your back being pulled down to the center of the earth.
So, because in the actual weightlessness, you actually grow as much as 2 inches.
Yep.
People don't realize that, but you actually do, because your spine will expand.
Yeah, the compression on your spine is alleviated.
Well, you liberate the gravity, and your spine can now stretch out to where it should be.
Yeah.
And so they don't really experience backaches in space. But that alone caused a lot of attrition in the fallout of,
I bet.
because we would start off like with 30 students, and by the end of the 30 days, we had one or two that made it all the way through. Okay?
Yeah.
The rest of them is just like, starting about 10 days into the study, we would start having them drop out. And the closer we got to 30 days, the more and more started dropping out.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh God, now we got to figure out how to do this type of experiment, but not stress the subject's body that bad. And so we finally figured out a way to do it, and that was, believe it or not, water beds. We found out that solid beds was detrimental to the study. And, but with water beds, we actually minimized the back pain effect. And once we did that, then we had more students
Complete the
study, and we got a lot more data points.
Interesting.
So
interesting, and of course, technology like that, experiments like that, is what leads to things like neutral buoyancy tanks, things like that, where you begin to simulate all kinds of environments and situations that the astronauts will be dealing with, so that they can train in an actual pseudo environment as to what they're going to be living and working in for weeks at a time sometimes.
In fact, one of the most commonly used medical devices that every doctor uses today, okay, whether it's your doctor's office or clinic or hospital or ER or whatever, can be traced back to a device that we had to build for Skylab. And because with Skylab, we had 3 astronauts on board the space station.
Okay.
Skylab Space Station. Well, we could not, when we would do medical experiments, we did not want to have two of the 3 dedicated to doing medical experiments. And there was one factor that was preventing us having one person do medical experiments without having another person, and that was taking the person's blood pressure. Okay? NASA developed the automated blood pressure system for Skylab, so that the astronaut would not have to have a second astronaut to take blood pressure readings of the astronaut that was doing the medical experiment. That way, the single astronaut could get we could get blood pressure readings from the single astronaut without another astronaut being present.
Interesting. And of course, even on a standard.
And today, that technology has been revised, miniaturized to the point where now you can put it on your wrist. And in fact, you can get smartwatches that will give you your blood pressure.
Absolutely. I mean, cuffs on chairs in Walgreens, all kind of stuff, all from because of course, even in a zero gravity environment, mercury in a standard sphygmomanometer is going to be totally different. Just so you know, folks, it's called the sphygmomanometer, the little thing that the doctor. So,
it will be.
So yeah, the pressure at which mercury operates would be totally different in a vacuum than it would be here on Earth. So you would have to totally adapt that system in order to be able. You'd have to build a pressurized gravitational system for mercury to work properly and give you a good blood pressure reading.
It's like
if you used a manual one.
It's like when we started putting up the space station, the International Space Station. The International Space Station has a very, very extensive medical bay.
Yeah.
Well, there's one aspect of the medical bay that we had to totally re-engineer because the item that we would use here on Earth will not work in space.
Which is that?
An IV.
Yeah. You're
Because
not going to get gravitational feet of water down that tube.
IV operates off of gravity.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had to come up with a motorized version that would allow them to adjust it,
adjust drip rate.
But at the same time, we can't have drip rate because it would just form as a bubble,
Yeah.
a fluid,
Yeah.
and it would not
It wouldn't go.
It wouldn't go into the bloodstream.
And
So-
my God, the idea of
So it has to be
Pressurized.
We had to be a continuous flow,
yeah,
but we had to be able to adjust it so that it simulated a drip,
a drip.
instead of that slower flow.
And good Lord, especially without pressure.
Yep.
Because you'd have to put air into that to make that happen. And now you're talking about danger of putting an air bubble inside of somebody's bloodstream. So yeah,
So we,
incredibly specialized.
And if we had an astronaut get severely injured, we're going to have to be able to give them IV fluids and blood.
Yeah.
And blood, same way.
Yep.
Trying to give them a blood transfusion, we would have the same problem.
Yeah.
So we have used the same device for blood transfusions too.
Interesting. Now, earlier, whenever we had Dr. Sobani on, we were talking about the soon-to-be scuttle of the ISS by SpaceX. They've just recently won the contract to help scuttle the ISS into Earth orbit. It is time to deprecate the station. We did the same thing with Skylab, things like that. As somebody who was there during the days of Skylab, during the beginnings of our long stays in space, helping build ISS as things started with STS, the shuttle transport system, what do you see the impact of losing ISS for these few years?
Well, we
And
won't.
the-
I understand. SpaceX is working with Axiom. I don't know if you if you know this company, Axiom.
Yes.
Axiom wants to, before they scuttle the space station, put up a couple modules and attach it to the space station, and then start moving certain critical gear from the space station over to the Axiom modules.
Okay.
And then when they get ready to scuttle the space station, they will detach from the ISS, and we will still have a lot smaller, but we will still have
A laboratory presence.
a laboratory present that has the critical space data that is being accumulated on board the ISS right now.
Yeah, because there's regular data collection that's happening whether people are on board the ISS or not. There's regular sensors, things like that we're picking up Earth gravitational waves and space weather and all kinds of things. So that is absolutely critical information to, like you're saying, is satellite information, that kind of stuff. So to know that that's still going to be there, I knew of Axiom Space, but I didn't know of that together plan for them to have the few modules. That's great to hear.
If you
That's
go up on
fantastic to hear.
Axiom's website, they'll show you the modules.
Awesome.
They're currently in production right now.
Yes. Yeah.
And so they'll be launched by a SpaceX Falcon Heavy to get them up there.
Yeah.
And the first one will actually be what's kind of like a node module that they'll allow them to attach other modules to.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A master hub.
Yeah, it's a hub, and they'll be able to attach 4 other modules to that, and then the outer hub will be where the SpaceX Dragon can dock to.
And, yeah. And with that in mind, it must be amazing for you, especially as somebody who worked on launch, recovery, things like that, how we live in space, how we get back from space. It must be very exciting for you to see not only the idea of returnable, reusable craft, of course, like the STS, like the unmanned shuttle that we have right now that's running missions.
Well,
but
and then you got the SpaceX boosters.
I was going to say, those are the most exciting ones that as a rocket engineer must be just having you salivate to watch on screen.
To actually watch the booster recovery from a Falcon Heavy is more exciting than watching a single Falcon recovery, because to watch two boosters come down simultaneously and land, it's pretty incredible.
It's pretty incredible. Honestly, one of my favorite videos over the last few months on the internet has been seeing the young lady that did it with a solid booster rocket with a hey, I just made a model rocket and it lands by itself. Yep. It's like, wow, way to go, kid. So cool.
The next big interesting point is going to happen on Starship Flight 5, which is we've already done 4, and we're going to do 5 here. SpaceX is going to do 5 probably later on this year. They're going to attempt something that hasn't been done yet before.
What are they attempting?
They're going to attempt to capture the booster on landing with the tower.
Wow.
They're going to bring the booster back, to the launch site, and they're going to try to bring the booster so that it comes right down beside the tower, and they're going to have the 2 wings come out and grab it.
Wow.
And recover the booster.
So directly back home, not landing on a platform out in the water or anything like that, right back to the point of launch.
Yep. Because
that's incredible.
Because on Starship 4, which went up, back in May, I think it was.
Yeah.
They brought the booster back, and it did an absolute perfect soft landing in the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
And it actually stood up for about almost 5 minutes before it finally flopped forward.
Yeah.
And so, they've got the technology worked out.
They've got the armature figured out to grab it while it's standing.
Yeah. So this time, like I said, they're going to bring it back to the launch site. They're going to try to, as it's starting to settle onto the pad, then they're going to bring the arms out and grab it, so that once they cut the engines off, it can't fall over.
Yeah. And man. And once again, it's one of those, we learn with every mission. And without people like you, without scientists like you that were literally the Magellans of this.
Yeah, we were as far as space flight, the Apollo program, the Mercury program, the Gemini, the Apollo program, these were all trailblazer stuff. We were like the Indiana Jones going out finding a ancient site. We were dealing with stuff that half the time we didn't know what we were doing, but we kept going and we figured it out, and we made a lot of mistakes. But as a result, we accumulated a lot of successes, and built on top of that. And other than Apollo 1, we have never lost a crew in space at all.
Yeah.
Other than Apollo 1, and the only reason, except for Challenger, and the other one I forgot to remember what it is. No,
Endeavor?
no, it wasn't Enterprise. Enterprise never flew in space.
That's right.
But anyway, and the only reason that we lost crews at that time is because, and I really hate to say this, because I know a lot of my NASA friends and stuff will kind of get mad at me for saying this, but we got complacent.
Yep. And we got very comfortable with the process.
And we started taking, we started cutting corners, and you can't do that with spaceflight.
No. No, and I remember even
It was like Challenger. We once we figured out why Challenger went off, and that was because
the deprecation of the O-rings due to the temperature differential of the freezing temperatures and
it
the
was
heat
right there,
of the engine.
right there in the regulations.
That's
Do
right.
not launch below a certain temperature.
That's right. That's right.
And what did we do?
We knew we hit those temperatures
And
8 hours before flight time.
what did we do?
O-rings should have been checked.
What did we do? We launched
flew
below.
anyway.
We launched
Yeah.
anyway because we had so much pressure from.
And it was the same way with Columbia. Columbia was
the
the other, where we lost a tile on the way up, but we went to land anyway.
Well, the thing is that with Columbia, we didn't know about the damage.
Yeah.
Okay?
We didn't know the full extent of damage.
Because it really didn't really dawn on us to take the robotic arm and have it go out and
pan around and look at everything.
Look at the backside of the orbiter.
Well, and it was also the fact
if we had done that on a regular basis, every time the shuttle goes up, take a couple hours and take the robotic arm and go out and just look to see how many tiles
visual inspection,
see how many tiles were missing.
Yeah,
we would have saw right off the bat. Oh my God, we got this huge hole.
Yeah. And granted, the tiles were something they got damaged on a regular basis. They cracked on a regular basis. They were replaced on a regular basis. It wasn't anything strange for them to lose part of a tile, something like that. But it was the fact of where that tile was and the size of the tile that made the difference.
Believe it or not, by the time we got to Columbia, we wasn't using tiles anymore.
Yeah.
We were using blankets.
Yep.
And these blankets were like 4 to 6 feet in length and about 3 to 4 feet in wide, and they were, and so, because we figured, we discovered that, if we used the bigger blankets, we had less damage to the heat shield than we did using the small 1 foot by 1 foot size towels.
Yeah, because you're technically each one of those is concentrated in one area instead of dispersing it across a large surface area. Totally.
But
you're creating a pinpoint spot of heat instead of spreading it out evenly. Yeah, and sadly, once again, things like that come from complacency and also a learn as you go situation.
Because
sadly.
Once we started reflying shuttle, one of the mandates was once it docked, take the arm and put it around and do an inspection of the heat shield, just to make sure that scenario never happened again.
Exactly. And Joann, I cannot thank you enough for your time, not only just here in the hallway chatting and talking over the last couple days, but coming here on the show, sharing your realm of experience with one of the most incredible moments in literally human history. Thank you for your years of dedication and work on that.
The one thing I'll tell you about the Apollo program.
Please.
There was one particular moment where the entire world forgot their differences, and that was the Apollo 11 landing.
Yeah.
Because so many people around the world watched that landing.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about all of our enemies and everybody.
Russia
just said, we're going to put all of our animosities on hold, and we're going to watch this magnificent step for mankind.
Absolutely, and that's just it. We need more.
And we have not done that since.
We need more pinnacle moments like that in the history of mankind.
Yes,
Thank you so much for helping create that moment for us, Joann. Thank you so much for all your time.
You're welcome.
Let everybody know where they can find out more about Apollo, the space program, things like that.
If you go up on the NASA website, there's a section where you can look at the Apollo, all the different aspects of the Apollo program.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it right now, but there's a place where you can actually go out and look at all of the extensive database of all of the devices and instrumentation that we developed.
Wow.
And in fact, you can actually download the schematics, the instructions, and everything to recreate that item.
Wow.
Because that's how we had to publish everything.
Yep.
We had to be able to whenever we invented a new item, we had to document it to the point that another scientist somewhere else could take that documentation and recreate 100%
Wow.
that instrument.
Wow. Incredible. Incredible. Absolutely awesome. Thank you again for the time
You're
on
welcome.
this very busy symposium. While you are online looking up everything at nasa.gov about the Apollo program, which happened, and we went to the moon. While you're online checking all that out, make sure to stop on by Curious Realm. CuriousRealm.com is where you can like, follow, subscribe, share, comment. That's where you can get your copy of the observation and encounter log. That's where you can get your binaural beat music. That's where you can find all of the connections to places like nasa.gov, everything else. Stay tuned through this quick break. We'll be right back with our waning coverage of the 2024 MUFON Symposium right here in Irving, Texas, right after this, folks.
The key to good science is good research. At the heart of good research is a good data set. With the field observation and encounter log from Curious Research, you can easily keep track of your investigative information all in one place, making it easier to review cases and readily see comparisons and contrasts between them. Whether out in the woods squatching, in a back room gathering EVPs, or using high-tech gear to track UFO, UAP activity, this easy-to-carry, pocket-sized scientific data log is the perfect companion for any field researcher. You can find your copy of the Curious Research Field Observation and Encounter Log at Amazon.com or visit the official Curious Realm store at CuriousRealm.com/store to reserve your copy for yourself, your family, or a mind that you want to open. That website again is CuriousRealm.com/store.